Okay, so good day guys, Abdurrahman here. In this video, I want to explain to you how you can add the functionality of toggling between light and dark mode in React. So basically what we have here is just components. We have a navbar component and we also have a main content component. So we have just two components and we are rendering them here on I will show you the code, but I'm just like trying to explain the walkthrough first. So uh essentially what we want to do is being able to switch from a light mode to a dark mode and from a dark mode to a light mode, and we can do this using React, obviously with some CSS styling. So now let's get to the code and see how this works out. The first thing I would like to do is, okay, so first of all, you can see that right now nothing is working, right? So what we want to do now is we want to be able to set that dark mode and be able to toggle it on and off. Okay, so like I said earlier, our components, we have two components basically. We have the navbar components and we have the main content component, right? So and the app is like hosting the navbar and the main content. So uh most of our logic is going to be happening in the app. So we're going to be using use states to achieve this functionality of the toggling functionality. So what we want to do is we want to create a variable and in use state. So let's name it, let's say dark mode, right? Okay, so because that's the functionality we want to add. Okay, so use states, if you are familiar with React, then you probably know what use states is. It's one of the most used React hooks. So basically what use states does is basically what use states sorry okay, yeah, I've not imported, I did not import it specifically, so I need to like attribute it to React basically. So sorry, can I spell? Okay, so what use state does is we use states to save variables, constant variables that we don't want to change. We don't want to be able to change these variables anywhere anyhow except using the second parameter, which is the set dark mode, right? So this set dark mode is a function, so and it is used to change the value that comes inside the dark mode, right? Okay, so dark mode is used to save it could be any data at all. It could be a number, it could be a string. So use state is used to save any data at all, so any accepted data. But set dark mode, which is the second parameter, is always a function that is used to change whatever it is that we pass in dark mode. So this ensures that we cannot just manipulate our data anywhere anyhow except by using this set dark mode. Okay, so that's what we want to do now is we want to set it to true, right? So basically the idea of this is that whenever our dark mode is true, we want our application to be in the dark mode, and when it is false, then we want it to be in the light mode, right? So this is essentially what we want to achieve by using use states. So uh how we are going to achieve is by, let's create a function, right? So we'll create a function and let's call it function toggle dark mode. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a right name to give. Yeah. So basically what this function does is it does the toggling. So like I said, if you want to manipulate or change this dark mode data, then we need to use the second parameter, which is set dark mode. So we are doing set dark mode, and it receives the new data that you want to change. It could also be a callback that returns in new data. So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the previous data first, and we do that by passing in we can name it anything, but it's basically the previous data. So let's say previous previous mode, that's whatever mode it was before, either true or false. So what do you want to set it to whenever we run this toggle dark mode function? We want to set it to the opposite of whatever it was before. Yeah, so you get the logic now. So whenever we run this toggle dark mode function, it changes our dark mode from true to false or from false to true, depending on what it was before. So now we just need a way to make to send this data to our components, to the navbar and to the main content. And we can do that by passing it here so that we can receive them as props. So passing them here, let's name this dark mode, right? So equal to dark mode, which holds the boolean of true or false, so we can know whether to show our dark mode or light mode. So we also want to pass in the toggle dark mode function, and this is because the toggling is going to the toggling functionality is going to be happening from the navbar. So we have our, if you see here, you can see that we have our toggle in our navbar, right? So that means we need the function to be in this navbar so that we can run it from here. So toggle dark mode is toggle dark mode. So we're sending that to the navbar. So now let's go and receive that and check this out. So in the navbar, the way we accept this kind of data that is coming from another component where we are rendering the navbar is by using props, right? So we use props to receive data from here we are rendering the navbar, data that we're passing to it. So on our props now, we can access the dark mode and the set dark mode function. So where do you want to add this? So what you need to understand is we are using css class. We are using classes to actually make this work. So if you come to the index of css, then you would see a lot of dark mode. Okay, you guys, don't I'm going to send I'm going to add the description. I'm going to add the GitHub link to this repo in the description box, so you can always fork it and check it out, work on it yourself and play around it. So we have the nav.dark. You can see this right here. So this styling is just to like, so whenever you click the dark, we want this to be rendered. So instead of just this one, because this is like the default styling. This is like the default styling. So whenever you render this, so you want this one to also run. So and that's how it is across this CSS file. We are rendering some dark styling, right? So I don't want to go through all this CSS because that's not the essence of this particular tutorial. So that's basically how it works. By you are using CSS styling by adding dot dark or a dark class to the parts of our elements that we want to be changed. So now on our navbar, on our nav elements, we want the color of this background, this part, to also change whenever we click this toggle, right? So let's set that now. So what we can do is basically we can set the nav.class. So we can set the nav.class. So we received props here now. So it's now easier to use it, right? So we want to set the class name based on whatever it is that we're passing to it. So let's say props the dark mode. Yeah, you get it right. So dark mode now, which is either true or false, right? So if it is true, now we're using a ternary operator. So which checks a code. If that code is true, then it runs the first part. But if it is false, it runs the second part. So now the first part here is going to be dark, which is a class name. And if you check the CSS file, you would see dark on a lot of elements. That is because you want this element style to be rendered if we have the class name dark added to the element, right? So if props.dark is true, then we want this dark class to be attributed to nav, and it should run the styling that is on it in the index of CSS. But if it is not, then we don't want it to. It should just be an empty class. So I think you get the idea. So if by just saving this, then I think it should already be working for the navbar. So if you come here now, wow, you can see. So that's because we set it to true automatically, like just from the. So by default, it is set to true. So if I change this to false now, you're going to see that it's going to change. It's going to change back. Save. It's going to change back to the white. If I set it to true, it's going to change. It's going to show. So you see how that works now, right? So we don't want to be manually changing this. Obviously, we want to change this only when we click on this toggle bar. So now we can do that function. We can do that by adding the function. Remember the function that we made in the app.js. Yeah, this toggle dark mode function that we are passing here. So now let's receive that and also put that into action. So where do you think we are going to put that? We are going to essentially put that in that this part of the page. So the slider, right? So we just add an on click to this div. This, yeah, this is the one exactly. So we add an on click to it. Okay, which is basically an event listener. So we add props dot toggle dark mode, right? Sorry, toggle dark mode. So basically we want to run this function whenever we click on this slider. So even just by doing this, then everything should be working for the navbar. Because now when I click it, I'm setting it to the opposite of what it was before. So we're setting dark mode to false now. So when we set it back to true by clicking it, then it brings it back, then set it to false, set it to true. So that's essentially what's happening here now. So we want to do the same functionality, not for just the navbar, but also for the main content, right? So now that's pretty easy at this point. So we're done with this navbar component. So let's just go to the main content. So now with the main content, we also need to get access to those to the dark mode data, and we're not passing it here, so we need to first pass it. So we can say dark mode is equal to dark mode, right? Now let's save this and come to the main content. So we need to receive this as props. Okay, I already passed in props here. So we need to also pass in this to the main content, and we are going to add that in the main so that it covers for the whole because it's like a container, so it accesses everything. So let's say class name. So we're setting this to remember the same logic that we did in the navbar. So props dot dark mode, check is this true. If it is true, then set the class to dark. Don't forget we already have styling that is handling this, that has this dark in it, and that's some styling that is rendering already. So that's why this works seamlessly. So you need to create depending on what you want your dark mode to look like. So we have our dark here, set it to dark. If not, set it to an empty class name. So just by doing this, I think it should all work now. Now let's see this route. So beautiful, it works now. So you can see that as we added that, now it now works. So whenever we click this toggle bar, it changes to white. Then when we click it again, so it's just basically what it's doing is just setting the dark mode to false or true, and if it is true, it is using the dark class, and if it is false, it is not using it. So it is as simple as that. So if you enjoyed this video and you actually found value at some point, click the subscribe button and consider subscribing to my channel, so it helps me reach more viewers like yourself that are interested in this kind of topics, or are interested or want to solve a particular problem that I'm talking about. And so I really appreciate your time here, and thank you, and see you in the next video.